What is up, you guys? This is JP, and today we're going to talk about why Joel Seedman has been under fire from the fitness industry. If you're watching this video, you probably know who Joel Seedman is, and you probably know that he's been kind of getting a lot of scrutiny and a lot of flack from the fitness industry as a whole. From fitness influencers to the leading experts in exercise science to just the whole fitness community, from the people who be typing in the comments. He's been kind of getting a lot of flack as of late. Again, he still has his own following. He still has, the people who agree with him or think that what he's doing is correct. But generally, he's kind of been getting a lot of heat as of late from the fitness industry. For those of you who don't know who Joel Seedman is, he's a human performance coach. So he trains people to perform better at their sport. So he trains athletes. And then he has a PhD in kinesiology as well. So on his website, it says Advanced Human Performance. He trains athletes. You can go to his Instagram and see. And again, like I said, he has a PhD in kinesiology, so he's highly credentialed. And again, don't kind of misconstrue that. Highly credentialed, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a great coach. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad coach. It doesn't necessarily mean you know what you're talking about, and it doesn't mean you're good or bad in regard to doing the right thing or doing the honorable thing. All having a PhD is showing that you completed the degree, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're the smartest person ever. Okay, so but he does have a PhD in kinesiology. So the reason why I'm making this video is to kind of give you guys the reasons behind why people don't like Joel Seedman. Because again, you might be watching something or seeing something from someone who's just straight talking shit, ripping him apart, and going just straight ham on him, but they're not really slowing things down and letting you guys know why people don't like him to begin with. Because again, I kind of don't like the guy either. For at least on the fitness side of things, he might be the nicest person outside of the fitness side of things, but again, this is all I know of him from, and this is all I know of him. And again, you can still kind of tell a lot about someone from a few things. A quick analogy is if you let a friend into your house, and let's just say they do everything great outside of your house. They're a saint, they give to charities, but let's just say you catch them stealing $5 out of your wallet. You're gonna be pretty pissed. You're gonna be like, why are you stealing $5 out of my wallet? It's not really the money that matters, because it's just $5, but it's more of the principle. And you could still have a bad taste in your mouth with that person, even if they only stole just $5 from you. So that's kind of like what my point is with Joel Seedman is, even though I don't really know much about him outside of fitness, the stuff that he's done in fitness I really don't like. And I'm gonna kind of give you guys, let you guys know why people don't like him and the reasons behind it. So at the core of everything, the reason why people don't like Joel Seedman or they make negative comments about him or videos about him is because to these people, and to me as well, he comes off as manipulative, disingenuous, and he swindles people out of their money. People who don't know any better, he swindles them out of their money. And again, there's some facts to this later on out of his own mouth that we can kind of come back to this, and it kind of proves that point in a way. But at its core, this is why people don't really like Joel Seedman. And there's some middle points to kind of connect all that. If I look down, I'm just reading some notes so I can kind of keep things concise. So why do people think that Joel Seedman is manipulative, disingenuous, and he swindles people out of their money? The main reason is because his training advice is not good. If you haven't seen Joel Seedman's Instagram, you could go take a look after this video, or maybe you've already seen it. But he has a pretty unique Instagram with the content that he posts on there. Pretty much most of his posts have some specific traits to them, some kind of weird traits to them. I'll talk 3 main traits, but there's a 4th one that I'm going to touch on as well. But there's 3 main traits that each of his posts, or most of the posts he puts on Instagram, have in common. So the first trait that his posts kind of have in common is that it's usually a novel exercise. Okay, it's usually something novel. So if you've never seen Joel Seedman's Instagram, you could do a little test. If you've never, this will only really work if you've never seen his Instagram. Go to his Instagram, and I bet you within the first 10 or 15 seconds of scrolling through his Instagram, you're gonna see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 exercises or variations of exercises that you've never seen before in your life. They're completely novel. A lot of his posts is novelty. And again, while we should be making innovations and changes and advances as strength coaches, if everything you're teaching is so far left field from what everyone else is teaching, that's usually a red flag for, or should be a red flag for the people viewing the content. You know, there are a lot of smart people in exercise science, okay? Joel Seedman is not so smart or special to be doing everything so way different and so left field and look at all these new exercises. He's not, okay? Nobody is, okay? Now again, there might be something that you advance in, and again, hopefully you had evidence to back that up, which again he doesn't. But again, that's one red flag that you should notice when you're looking through his posts. It's like, why are all these so new? And again, novel doesn't necessarily mean good. There's going to be some people out there who are going to hear me say this and be like, well, it's because he's so high level. No, that's a stupid excuse. You're not. Nobody is so smart to be doing 90%, 80% of things that nobody else has done in fitness. It's just strength coaches who have came before him, who exist now, who have, you know, come and gone in this field. They have built and created exercises and programs, and the scientists who have done the research and the studies. You have the trainers who are in the trenches, the strength coaches who have been in the trenches. They have laid this foundation for the rest of us to use these tools and knowledge to be able to train strength, to be able to train athletes and to help them perform the best on the field. So to think that you can create all these novel exercises and just, oh, you change the game, no, that's not true. And again, that should be a red flag for people looking at his content. The second trait that a lot of his posts have, that again, it's another red flag, is that a lot of the stuff that he does is kind of wacky or abnormal. If you look at it, it's not just new, it looks weird. It's weird, wacky. He's doing things with specific pieces of equipment that it doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. And again, it's kind of hard to wrap up how many things he's doing wrong or weird or abnormal on his on the content that he posts. If you go to his Instagram, you know exactly what I mean. The only thing, like for example, what comes to mind is he had a safety bar, squat bar on his, on his back, while he's using a trap bar at the same exact time. He drops the trap bar and does squats with the safety squat bar, like stuff that's just kind of totally wacky. So that's the second trait that a lot of his posts share. The third trait that a lot of his posts share is that he shows a lot of exercises that are unstable, okay? Unstable. And again, this is a huge red flag for people who understand exercise science, and this is where Mike Israetel grills him on, which I'll get to in a little bit. But again, unstable exercises or doing exercises on a surface that is not stable is not the best way to develop strength, to develop power, and to develop, to induce hypertrophy, to gain muscle. So again, I'll wrap this up quickly in this point because I don't want it to drag on too long. This video is getting pretty long already. But again, when you're trying to gain muscle, you need to have sufficient amounts of mechanical tension applied to that muscle for it to be able to grow. When you apply mechanical tension to a muscle, enough mechanical tension to the muscle, a cascade of things happens after that. Protein synthesis increases after the workout, or the duration after the workout. A lot of hormonal things happen that tell your body to, obviously give in proper nutrition and sleep and stuff to grow that muscle. If you don't have sufficient amounts of mechanical tension, that muscle is not going to grow. Again, let me give you a quick example. If I do this on my arm, a bicep curl, if I just keep doing this, it's a curl. My hand weighs something. Even if I held a 1 pound dumbbell and did this, it's not going to do anything, okay? It's too light of a load for it to be able to induce hypertrophy. It just can't work. So on the hypertrophy side, if you can't apply sufficient amounts of mechanical tension, it's not going to do anything, okay? Now let's talk about strength and power. Strength and power is load dependent. So if you want to maximize strength, you need to apply a sufficient amount of, again, same thing, mechanical tension or load to be able to get strong on that exercise. You can't maximize strength adaptations with really light loads, and you can't maximize power adaptations either with too light loads either. Obviously, you need heavier weights with strength training, like traditional strength training versus power training, but you still need a sufficient amount of weight to maximize power output as well. Now, all three of these things are tied or have some relationship with load and mechanical tension. So when you're thinking about this, when you're thinking about trying to maximize adaptations in these three categories, that does not sit well with being on an unstable surface. When you're on an unstable surface, you can't apply sufficient amounts of mechanical tension to induce the most hypertrophy that you're trying to get, but you also can't use as heavy loads as you need to do for power and traditional strength training for like powerlifting or whatever it is. You can't. Think about it. If you're on a BOSU ball or on a wobbly surface, you're not, like, for example, for a barbell back squat, if you want to maximize strength adaptations, you need to train heavy relative to you. But you can't do that when you're wobbling on a surface. And if someone says, well, you can do that over time, well, guess what? You can still, an athlete that can do 315 on a wobbly surface could probably do 400 or 500 on a flat surface. So again, you're still not maximizing strength adaptations. So when it comes to these things, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Despite the credential, despite him having a big following, and despite him training professional athletes, it doesn't make any sense. The way that he trains people, it's just not good advice, and it's not good coaching advice. And this is the majority of stuff he posts on Instagram. Now, some of you may be saying, okay, well, let's just say he is wrong and he doesn't know what he's talking about. How does that make him disingenuous and manipulative and a swindler? And this is kind of funny because it circles back to a point that I mentioned earlier. Is he was on a podcast on Mark Bell's Power Project podcast. He was on there, and I don't know if it was like a pop-in or what. I do know that he had short notice for the discussion, but Mike Israetel kind of called in to Mark Bell's Power Project podcast, and Mike Israetel, a really respectable guy that I like, and a lot of people hold to a high regard in exercise science, and specifically for hypertrophy. Mike Israetel debated Joel Seedman. It was a debate, and Mike Israetel kind of grilled him and asked him a lot of questions, and Joel Seedman kind of had his back against the wall. And basically, Joel Seedman said a whole lot of nothing. He kind of, in a weird way, avoided a lot of the questions, and I don't know, he answered in weird ways where he was kind of rubber banding around the arguments and avoiding direct answers a lot of the times. And the most direct answers he did give were not good answers. But I'll link that whole little the whole debate between Mike Israetel and Joel Seedman down below. But again, despite him dancing around, a lot of the questions that Mike Israetel was asking, one point I kind of want to focus on is, and I have my notes right here, is one thing that he said was Mike Israetel asked Joel about, it pressed him and made the point of what I just mentioned a little bit ago. And obviously Mike did it first and talked to him about training on stable surfaces and how that's the best way to develop induce hypertrophy, make gains in muscle mass and develop strength. And then you carry those strength adaptations that you got from the gym that you train on stable surfaces to the more sports specific stuff. And what Joel Seedman said was, and again, it's kind of a wishy-washy answer, was he does the foundational movements. And I quote, he said, 80% of everything I have my athletes do focuses on the foundational movements, the traditional stable squat, bench, deadlift. And that's where it kind of lost me a little bit in that sort of sense. Not in the sense that I didn't understand, but I'm like, okay, this is where he's kind of proving that he's disingenuous, because then Mike Israetel goes back and asks him right after, says, okay, well, if 80% of the stuff you do is the traditional movements and all these wacky, novel, unstable exercises that you post on your Instagram, why is all the content that you post on Instagram these weird, wacky, unstable exercises? Why don't you post any traditional stuff? And then Joel Seedman counters, and this is how, from the horse's mouth, why he's manipulative and why he's disingenuous is from his own mouth. He said basically, and you can listen to the podcast down below, is that it doesn't get the most clicks, it doesn't get the most traction, that it doesn't bring in the most eyes. Okay, that's what he said. For one, obviously, that's not a good reason to post bullshit exercises and to post, horrible training advice and horrible coaching advice, because a lot of people are going to go to him, and if they see this is all the stuff that he posts, and he talks highly of these exercises, which are shit to begin with, which I just explained a little bit ago, they're going to do all these things, okay? If you're a coach and you believe that 80%, or he trains his athletes with 80% of the foundational movements, but 99.9% of the shit you post is not that, what do you think the people that are, looking at your content are going to do? So this is where he basically said he does it for clicks. He said he does it for clicks. It gets the most eyes, which again in turn gets him the most money. And yep. So that's pretty much what it comes down to, is he's doing this because it gets the most eyes, and that's why he posts his wacky stuff. And this, he basically said that this isn't how he trains his athletes. Okay, he's posting most of the content of not exactly how he doesn't train his athletes, and then he tried playing both sides at the end by saying, you know, that I don't know, but that pretty much sums it up. This is why a lot of us find him manipulative, find him disingenuous, is because he claims he trains athletes 80% foundational movements, but he doesn't post that way because it doesn't get the most clicks and likes, and it doesn't get the most eyes. And this is where this is what I don't like about it. I don't like about it, and I don't like, him for that reason. And I do think it's manipulative, because then he's doing that to bring in the most eyes. And what do you think people are going to do when they see his stuff? They're going to be like, ooh, people who don't know any better are going to be like, wow, and he trains high level athletes, and then they're going to click on his website and buy his stuff. So this is for exposure money, and that's why he's doing that. This is why I think he's swindling people out of their money, essentially. And to be honest, I don't really buy that he trains athletes 80% in the foundational movements. I don't really buy that. I have no proof, but just from the way he's gone about his words and how he's dancing around questions, I don't really buy that. I don't believe him. And I personally don't I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't think he does that. I really think that the majority of how he trains is what he's posting on his Instagram. On his Instagram. And again, he has a lot of other bullshit on there about 90-degree joint angles, which is the fourth point I mentioned earlier. Again, this video is already long enough. I'm not going to go into all that. But again, he posted about that, and that has a lot of research going against it. So to kind of summarize the TLDR version of this video, Joel Seedman posts a bunch of bullshit of stuff that does not work. Science doesn't back it up. All the top-notch strength coaches disagree on this type of training. It doesn't work. And he basically posts these wacky exercises to get, to get people to look at his stuff, to get clicks, content, to get people to view his stuff. And essentially it's going to eventually get him more money, is what it comes down to. And he knows this. So that's why people find him disingenuous, manipulative, and he's basically doing the dishonorable thing to get more clicks, likes, and money. So if you guys want to watch that podcast from them, I'll link it down below. Again, that's all their credit to them. That's all their content. If you guys like my video, please leave a comment down below, drop a like, share this video. If you have any questions, let me know. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.